Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. This is Frederick Winsness with NetHope, and I want to welcome everyone to yet another webinar in our Solutions Center, NetHope Solutions Center webinar series. Today we're going to talk about leading with data and thriving, and we're thrilled to have representatives from Mercy Ships and Qlik with us today. Before we get started, I just want to go over the normal housekeeping rules. So we do want to keep this as interactive as possible, so please line up your questions in the chat window, and we're going to be having a Q&A, facilitated Q&A session towards the end of the hour. So you will find the chat window by clicking the third icon to the right on your screen, right under the slides. That should open up the chat window, and keep an eye on what's going on there and submit your questions. And again, we will facilitate a Q&A session towards the end of the hour today. We are recording the session, so please look for an email with the link to where we have posted the recording, and the collateral. The slides will be posted to the NetHope Solutions Center as well. And I would certainly appreciate, as you close out the webinar today, if you take a couple minutes to answer our online survey, online webinar satisfaction poll. It helps us improve this webinar series over time. So with no further ado, what I want to do is to welcome Geoff Williams. He's the Director, Innovation and Enterprise Architecture at Mercy Ships, and he's going to be doing most of the talking today. We also have Julie Kay from Qlik. She's the Executive Director with Qlik.org. And first I'm going to turn it over to you, Julie, so if you can come off mute, and I'll switch the slides around for you.
No, that sounds great. And Frederick, just can you hear me okay? Just want to confirm that. Okay, yes. Excellent. And thanks everyone for joining the webinar this morning. We're incredibly proud to be presenting to all of you, and also very proud to support a number of NetHope members and with the Qlik Analytics platform, and look forward to sharing this information with you today. So as Frederick stated, I'm Julie Kay. I'm the Executive Director of Qlik.org, and I'm the warm-up band, if you will, for our headliner, Geoff Williams from Mercy Ships, who will be talking about how data and analytics has truly enabled Mercy Ships to become an empowered organization and really leading with data, and a great example of thriving based on that analysis. So without further ado, I'm going to take you through just a quick representation of kind of what Qlik is all about, and then hand it over to Geoff. I have to show this legal disclaimer, of course, which talks kind of a little bit about our company and the fact that what we're presenting here today is in line with what we mean to present. But first and foremost, to talk about Qlik and to introduce our technology, we're very kind of excited about the ways in which Qlik's associative engine has been designed and offers support for analytics for several different types of industries and partners and clients, such as the members of NetHope. The associative engine is actually very different, and it's unique to Qlik, and it actually forms the basis on which our technology is designed. Over 20 years ago, we were created as a software company in Lund, Sweden, and this associative engine is the way in which we store and bring data together from a variety of different sources, so that folks and users can have access to that information at their fingertips in an extremely fast and comprehensive manner. And the way to think about the associative engine is this. It works the way our minds work. It's different than a SQL-based kind of visualization and or reporting tool. Qlik actually uses SQL and other different types of data loading kind of processes, if you will, to bring all of your data together into our platform and forms this association across your different data sets so that your data are linked together. And we talk about Qlik and the associative engine and working the way that your mind works in using an analogy, if you will. Recently, I actually showed up at the airport and I'd forgotten my passport and realized very quickly that I needed to travel back home to pick up my passport in order to obviously catch that international flight. And I'm sure this is probably, maybe, hopefully not, has happened to many of you on the call. But the way that kind of our mind processes information is also the way that Qlik works. When I started thinking about, okay, where is my passport? Because I was driving home and I needed to pick it up. I associated kind of the relevant experience with regards to where my passport might be by the time that I got back home. And in doing so, I thought about kind of the last time that I used my passport, where I might have placed it, where I might have stored it, and then came to the result of actually where I could find my passport when I got back home. And that's really how Qlik works. In a kind of a SQL-based or query-based kind of world, if you will, you might have processed that information according to like a drill down or predefined path to information, such as I live in the United States, I live in the state of Massachusetts, I live in Boston, and I live on a given street, and my house and different rooms in my house might be the result of where I might find my passport. That's how a typical hierarchical kind of query-based tool would process that same question. Qlik, on the other hand, works the way that our mind works. So as I processed the information, I thought about where I last used my passport was on a trip with my kids to go to a wedding. Well, I had my kids' passports as well, so when I took them out of our bag, which wasn't my briefcase, I put them actually in our desk drawer at home, so that by the time that I got actually to my home, I could know very quickly where my passport was, grab it, and quickly make my way back to catch my flight. That's how Qlik works. It works on this association concept, where you have all of your data, and you can actually peruse through your data, answering questions, again, the way that our mind works. It's a very powerful kind of example, if you will, of the power that Qlik brings to your data in this context. So now, as we have the associative engine, there are 10 key elements that we believe bring about a successful use of data analytics and a data strategy. And I'm going to go through these actually on the next number of slides. First and foremost, Qlik likes to work with all of your data. We don't just focus on one data set at a time, but we like to bring all of your data into the Qlik associative engine. We combine many different data sources. So the Qlik associative engine, if you will, actually resides in a platform in memory and loads your data from your variety of sources into that engine to form those associations. We'll load data from SAP, from your CRM systems such as Salesforce or DonorPerfect, spreadsheets, flat files, relational databases, and or public data sets as well. We're very good at combining these data sets into the associative engine and giving you access to all of this information at one time. A second key element of the Qlik associative engine and the power of data analytics is that associative engine. So when we present this information to you, again, it's not one query at a time or one data set at a time, which you need to blend together in a visualization layer, but it's actually at the platform level in the way that we bring data together and associate it that allows you to peruse all of your data sets and make decisions based on a whole comprehensive set of information. What this means for you is that when you write a query, for example, you might ask for who were my donors last month compared to who were my donors the last month of the prior year. That will return a result set. What it doesn't necessarily tell you, however, is who were your donors that gave last year but didn't give this year, the relationship in that data. The associative engine is designed to show you not only the results of the query that you asked, but also what didn't make the answer set of your query. And that's the power of the associative engine. Many clients actually use Qlik and our data transformation tools to actually clean up their data or have a better understanding of the information and all of its good, bad, and ugly context. I worked with a client, for example, that was reporting on, again, maybe their fundraising campaigns across the United States. And they were writing reports by state, of course, but the queries are actually looking for the correct spellings, which is pretty obvious, of the 50 different United States. What it didn't recognize was the misspellings in the data, right? So all of the data that had been coded with an incorrect spelling of the state of California, for example, wasn't being brought into the report. When we did the same query in Qlik, what the client actually realized that there's a whole set of data that actually was misspelled, and thus they were missing a significant amount of information because they weren't seeing what didn't match their query results. So imperfect is perfect. And when Qlik actually presents your data through the associative engine, we'll show you the good, bad, and ugly. And there are a number of different tools that you can actually use in Qlik to actually transform and help you clean up your data, either in the associative engine or, more appropriately, back at its source. The Explorers Without Boundaries context actually means to, again, be able to leverage the power of the associative engine to see all of your data at the same time. What we provide through this associative exploration is actually the ability to actually ask any question and start at any point that you might want to recognize in your data. Whether you're starting at specific detailed information and or at a high-level summary, you are able to actually have a conversation with the data and start at any particular point, and again, freely explore your data as you use the technology. Understanding these associations that Qlik builds when you load your data sets into the engine is very important. And this is actually, again, the power and key strength to that platform. Qlik actually loads data, creates links across common fields in all of your different data sets. And of course, you have the ability to choose how those linkages occur. But once that happens and your data is actually loaded into Qlik, whether it came from a database, a CRM system, an ERP system, or a public data set, it doesn't matter. At that point, that data is in Qlik. Your associations and links built in Qlik actually predominantly show you how the data is linked together, and you have access to that information very freely and all the ways in which the designer of that application decided to model that data. Qlik provides global search across the entire database. This was a powerful concept that I demonstrated actually at a meeting last Wednesday in The Hague. We can load not only quantitative data, but also qualitative data as well. Long, lengthy text fields that we loaded from PDF source documents on the WHO's website were searchable for the very first time across countries by various search words such as avian flu, for example. And for the first time, we were actually able to present this data through smart searching and be able to show all of the different countries, all the different kind of ways in which those requested queries actually were relevant to both the qualitative as well as the quantitative information. The power of gray is a very important concept for us, and again, this is powered by the associative engine. It's important to understand which donors, for example, supported a given campaign, maybe supported that campaign last year as well as this year. But the power of gray will answer for you the supporters that didn't participate in this year's campaign. In other words, where is my opportunity? And that is the way in which the Qlik engine works. Again, we don't just show you the requested query result set. We show you the answers to the question that you're asking based on the filters that you request, and as well, the information in gray that falls out of those filter requests. In other words, the opportunity. There's a global context to the ways in which you explore data in Qlik. There's a filter panel at the top, and you'll see this in Geoff's demo of the Mercy Ships applications. But what we present to you is, again, all of these different ways in which you can explore and have a conversation with all of your data in the Qlik platform. And at any point in time, you can actually deselect, choose different filters, or change the order of those filters, again, to inspire that conversation with your data to support your analytical needs. And most importantly, speed of thought. We like to promote the ways in which people can access their data, have access to that information, and even provide a self-service experience so that folks can start with perhaps a model that was designed for them, but then continue to build upon that through self-service BI and building their own dashboards and visualizations, again, on top of that governed data platform. So anyone can analyze their information. Qlik is designed to bring that data from all of your different sources into the associative engine and then make it easily accessible through business kind of names as well as kind of logic, if you will, and metadata layers that people can access and have an understanding of what's commonly referred to as a given set of data versus what it might be coded as in an underlying database. Qlik can mask that information in the associative engine, making it easy for people to understand the data that's there, so that, again, they can feel empowered in creating their own analyses. We pride ourselves on our response time. We have customers and clients with tens of thousands of users hitting the same data platform with billions and billions of records. We've been doing this for 20 years, and we've perfected that way in which we store and bring together that information and that indexing in memory, again, to provide that instantaneous response when you ask a question of Qlik. You're not waiting for a query, for example. And massive scale. Again, we focus on creating an engine that's very powerful, that brings your different data sets together in one place to, again, empower your users, all of your users, with secured and governed access to that layer of information, again, so that they can have access to this data and feel empowered in going further themselves. So that, according to Qlik, are the 10 key elements of a successful data strategy and modern analytics platform. We'll have more Q&A at the end, but now I'm really super proud to introduce Geoff Williams as one of our wonderful partners, and he will be showing actually how they've leveraged a successful data strategy and analytics platform at Mercy Ships to continue their mission and support their mission in helping people around the world. So Geoff, I will hand it now over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. If this is the headlining act, it feels like the time Jimi Hendrix opened for the Monkees. But it's, I think the story I want to tell here is really about Qlik and what we are doing at Mercy Ships and how Qlik is empowering what we are doing to bring more hope and healing. Frederick, I'm going to switch over and start sharing my presentation here. And so we should be good to go on the slides.
We can see your slides, so thank you very much.
All right, here we are. Here are your data nerds for today. It's myself and Julie, and let's jump into this. First, give a quick briefing on Mercy Ships and who we are and what we're doing. Those of you who are here with NetHope may already be familiar with us, so bear with me. But Mercy Ships exists to meet the need for the 5 billion people on this planet who lack access to safe, affordable, and timely surgery. Measured in terms of global deaths, lack of access to surgery is a significant contributor. Not to downplay, any of the excellent work that has been done in other domains, and obviously 1.07 million and 2.76 million are numbers that are still too high, and we need to do something about. But Mercy Ships space that we serve is in surgery. We serve primarily through the areas that you see in red there, focusing on West and Central Africa right now. The platform we use, as you can probably tell from the name, is ships. Our ships are hospital ships. They serve as a platform that provides mobility, stability, and security, and provides a significant economy of scale by putting a lot of resources into a mobile platform. and it's our platform for training and development as well. As Mercy Ship stands in the gap to address the surgical need, our dream is actually to put ourselves out of a job someday and see every nation take care of itself. So we are investing more and more every year in training and development efforts and advocacy and research as well. Typical cycle for our ship. Right now, I say ship singular because we run one, the Africa Mercy. She's currently in Guinea, serving the people there, and she'll be in port there for 10 months and then have 2 months of maintenance. You can see a 5-year cycle there, with year 3 being the central year where the ship is actually in port and serving a nation. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today is about scaling and growth. We are adding a second ship, the Global Mercy, which is currently being built in China. The reality is, the Global Mercy is not just one more ship, it is 1.5 times the current size of our Africa Mercy. So that effectively looks like scaling up our operations from 100% to 250% in a very short amount of time. And my little doggy friends here represent how many different departments in the organization feel as we are scaling up. It's a bold venture, but we're seeing it happen. It's a very, very exciting time. So when we scale our operations, it's not just about having another ship and making it. It is about running a ship and running our programs, and that's what we're here for. That's what it's about. We have to bulk up recruiting and staffing and strategy and operations, logistics and funding, systems. All of these systems that go into making Mercy ships work have to be bigger, they have to be stronger. And in order to do that, they need better data because we can't make better decisions without it. So here's what we're doing with Qlik today. Throughout these domains in Mercy ships in the different organization, as Julie described, we are pulling in these data sources. We've addressed a number of these. We've got third-party sources coming in right now today, all coming up into the Qlik Sense platform. This is just a screenshot, but this is our Qlik warehouse, where we're doing our ETLs into the Qlik warehouse, making that data available for downstream apps that people use with a bunch of different systems. Here's an example of one of the downstream apps. We recently did a CMMI assessment across the programmatic department and through our hospitals, really assessing where are the opportunities for growth, where do we need to be investing next. This was a really neat, fun project to be a part of. And here's another screenshot from something we provided recently to our HR team. And one of the things Julie mentioned with the associative engine that it is really, really good at is helping you cleanse data. I saw the question in the chat room as well. This may address that as well. One of the challenges we have in our source system for HR is data is not always as clean as we would like it to be. One of the things that Qlik immediately does is help us recognize those, because the first time you put an analytics product into someone's hand, one of the things that goes through their mind is what am I discovering? What are the things that I expected to see here? What things am I not seeing that I expected? Or what things did I not expect that I am seeing? And we see that with our HR system, where data quality isn't as high as we would like. We bring that data in, and then HR teams take a look at it, and they say, well, this doesn't quite match my expectation. It gives the opportunity to drill in and to dig into that and find the specific reason for why a record or a group of records don't represent what you would expect. Very, very good at quickly identifying that. Let's talk about some of the Qlik quick wins in Mercy ships. I had to say that very slowly. One of the things that we've really valued for on the Qlik platform is time to value. Having a single platform that allows us to do the ETL process and visualization downstream with the really great tooling that Qlik provides just makes it very, very quick to produce. We've seen build time be particularly low for what would take an awful lot of time in some other platforms. Fast user adoption. What was key to this, though, is finding champions, finding the right people who are asking the right questions, who are interested in their own data. I am a strong advocate to democratize data. whenever there is the perception that it's IT's responsibility to own data and to take care of it, I push back on that. I look for the data champions in our departments. So when we started this initiative close to 3 years ago, part of my early efforts was to identify who wants this, who can really value from this, who's going to benefit, and who's going to be excited. We found our champions and we put some stuff in their hands, and we actually started engaging them in citizen development as well, and giving them the opportunity to build in the platform based on the data models that IT provided from their own systems. And the user experience in Qlik is great, performs really well, web-based UI, so really great tooling and interface. And the Dev Hub is really neat as well. The Dev Hub is a nice user-friendly interface way that we can take things that are in Qlik, we can mash them up, we can expose them with embeds and iframes into other platforms. That's really cool. And the support community in Qlik is fantastic. The Qlik community, the online forum, is really strong. Qlik branch gives you opportunities for it's essentially GitHub for Qlik, where people can publish their plugins that they have built and can share content and features with each other. Very strong. Qlik Connections. This will actually be the first time that we are going to Qlik Connections at Mercy Ships, and we're really excited about it. This is the annual conference for Qlik in Dallas in May this year, and we are very excited to be going to that. There's a number of initiatives and acquisitions that Qlik have made over the past year that we're really excited about at Mercy Ships. And of course, we're always happy to tell our story of what we're doing on the platform. And last but by no means least, you get Julie as well, and we absolutely appreciate everything Julie does. She is running a fantastic program with Qlik.org, and we look forward to what that looks like in the future. So we talked a bit earlier on this slide about what we're doing with Qlik today in the Mercy Ships platform. But this is probably if you're probably not surprised to hear this, but this is quite a simplified diagram, and this speaks into where we're going next with the platform as well. The reality is we're pulling all this data from source systems into the QlikSense platform, but in some ways we are duplicating efforts with what we're doing with our data integration platform as well, pushing data back and forth across different systems. And let's face it, this is NGO work, so there's lots of Excel, and let's face it, our financial guys and our programs teams love Excel. So this is more the reality of what we're facing and what we've been working through. So some of the lessons that Mercy Ships has learned to date on the Qlik platform. Governance is really important. Ultimately, making false assumptions based on data that you believe is either accurate when it isn't, or it means something that it doesn't, is dangerous, particularly if you want to be data-driven in your decision-making. So what do things mean? Who stewards what data? Who stewards what apps? What things should go where? This is really important to figure out. And in retrospect, I wish we would have committed more time to enforcing this and putting this in place. And so in our next round, in essentially what is going to be Mercy Ships BI version 2, we are going to make more effort on this. Data quality is huge, and we talked about the opportunity to cleanse data when Qlik reveals issues with it. You have to fix data in the source. Sometimes we get pushback from teams or people who would like to see it looking as it should in Qlik. The best path, in my opinion, is always to fix your data source and fix it in the source system. And you can help yourself turn by enforcing data quality by design. When you design and build systems, when you put in business rules in place into source systems, make sure your data quality supports your objectives and what you want out of it. I'll also say data skills matter a great deal. Having the right people on the work involved in your BI teams, having the right people from subject matter expertise teams in the application platforms, having the right subject matter expertise from the business process side is really, really important. Get the right people involved. And as I mentioned earlier, we've adopted a citizen development model where we have pushed some of the development of Qlik apps out to the business units in Mercy Ships, the departments. That still requires support. it doesn't allow your BI team to get out of the game of support completely. And the subject matter expertise that you bring in, they must know their data sources. Having solid understanding of source system databases and having data dictionaries for things, everything you can get helps a ton. I'm just going to take a drink of water, 1 second. Finally, collaboration is key. At Mercy Ships, we have a separate team within our IT department for our BI stack and then for our application support. Those teams talking to each other is crucial. Application staff often have more understanding and awareness of the context of data and what it means in those applications. And I will add to this, subject matter expertise in the business domain is crucial as well. But once you find your champions and you find people who are involved and invested, I think that's much easier. So that's where we've been and some of the lessons we've learned. Let's talk about our next steps. We are looking at a more sustainable authoritative data platform. When we say authoritative data, we mean you can trust what you are looking at and the results of it. In order to get there, this requires an enterprise architecture that supports that model, and we really do need to beef up our data governance skills. So this is an emergent area in Mercy Ships that we're actively thinking about a lot. I'll preface that with everything I'm about to say with that. And if you want to talk to me 12 months from now and ask me how this went, I would be more than willing to answer those questions. Hopefully, that is a fun, positive experience for me. We're looking at a data-centric enterprise architecture moving forward. This is a shift in mentality and thinking for some. But when we think about IT and what information technology is, it is technology that supports information. It supports the flow of information, it supports the processes around information, it supports the communication of information, because that is the data asset. If we pose data as the asset that our technology systems are managing and treat data like an asset, which many issues around regulatory compliance and GDPR and that sort of stuff are forcing you to think of data as an asset. If we frame it like that, then it sets it up for a different precedent than if we are simply running technology. In this model, we are establishing in Mercy Ships a few core pillars, and we're still thinking this through. So there's some tentative nature about this. But we are establishing a few core pillar systems where we consolidate things as much as possible into those platforms, noting there will still be some niche best-of-breed products you can see on the left there, which will still be out there. We'll have to figure out what to do with those when things truly are niche best-of-breed. But we will push as much information and data and business process into our core platform pillars, our resource and planning system, relationship management, program management, and a collaboration suite. All of those connected by a centralized platform, which from the bottom up, we've got our connectivity, which we're always going to need our networks and data centers of some sort, whether we host those on premise or on someone else's servers. All of that supported by a centralized and identity and access management solution. And we are working on that in 2019. We will be deploying something, not sure what yet. Many of you may already be down this road ahead of us. But we will deploying a single solution for identity management that supports all of the rest of the architecture around it. Data integration platform and reporting and analysis platform, you can see those are linked by a model of a centralized catalog and data warehouse, which is used for both integration and for supporting reporting and analysis. This is going to be a change for us where we have those running as two different platforms. We have a data integration platform and we have a BI platform. And so that's going to be a pretty significant shift for us, and we'll be figuring out how to do that. But it will form a single repository for the data sets that are most critical to Mercy Ships. And also a catalog for those. So we will organize what data sets we have and essentially form what will be a master data list, a master data catalog, where we say, if you want information about gifts, you know you can get it from here, and you know it's trustworthy by the time it gets there. And this platform will this catalog data warehouse model will support the integration platform. It will support business intelligence services, and it will help support our increased governance efforts to catalog our master data and establish data stewardship for different domains of the organization. We talked about consolidating into the pillar systems and moving things out of niche products into the centralized and really strongly established pillar platforms. We have to make buy-build decisions for niche systems and what we're going to do there. I'm not going to propose there's always one route or the other which is better, but we'll have to make that choice. Where we do build, we want to standardize the platform. You see that bespoke solution platform. Right now, we are users of the OutSystems platform and build everything on top of their RAD, their Rapid Application Development Architecture. We'll standardize upon that. But this centralized identity, data integration, and BI platform is important because it ties all of these things together. As organizations move more to SaaS models, platform as a service models, one of the things we will never get out of the business of doing is tying the data together and moving that data together. And I was really excited to hear about Qlik's acquisition of Attunity, which is a platform for data integration and data management. I think this is a really smart and strong move by Qlik to address that piece, because it recognizes the need for reporting and analysis and master data that is reliable and authoritative, to have the integration engine behind it that powers that and not just be cherry picking from systems. I think this is a really strong move from Qlik. Oh yeah, I've got some OCD tendencies. Sorry. It's when I see pictures like this that it really hits home. So our priorities for our team for 2019, we have to get our enterprise architecture foundations in place. We have identified Salesforce as our CRM platform of choice, so we're already starting to build up that core pillar there. And we need to start work on this central platform as well. Identity management, I mentioned our information security director is working on that to establish a standard and get us closer towards having a centralized identity management system. We're going to be addressing the BI and data integration platform. This will kick off next week with the meeting with my team to figure out the how. How do we get there, and what are the details of what this should look like? And 2019 is probably going to include all the messy stuff we didn't think of and doesn't show on the very pretty whiteboard. We are at time now in terms of the presentation. I do also have some Qlik apps lined up as well. One of the things that I'd like to do, and because this may help with some of the questions that come in to give some context, I'm going to dive out of the presentation here, and I'm going to dive live into our Mercy Ships Qlik environment. So for those who have never seen Qlik before and had hands-on, you can see some things for yourself here. I'm actually going to pull up this maritime training report. This pulls all the data in from our maritime systems that catalog which of the people on board of our ships need certification and training. Obviously, to sail a ship, you can't just do that without having a license. So we have a pretty robust system around managing certifications for mariners. That's the data set that's pulled in here. So in Qlik, because it's an analytics engine, like many other platforms, you can drill down and drill into stuff. So if I want to look at in the area of security awareness, I can drill into that, and it's going to start filtering all of the data in the set according to that filter that I've applied. I can also add group requests on top of that. We can see immediately we've had one group request for security awareness training every quarter since quarter 2 2018. I can hit the filters here. I can dynamically add in more of the course requests. Julie talked about the power of the gray and the differentiation between the dark gray and the light gray here, saying the light gray has some records that are not represented. The dark gray has no records. That's not going to add any additional value there. Here's another app that we worked on in partnership with Qlik and Deloitte for a hackathon event, where we provided some fabricated data and anonymized data. So nothing you see in here represents real information in our systems, but this represents our impact, the impact of our programs that Mercy Ships operates. We can see by patient, by diagnosis, how much Mercy Ships should expect to see in terms of an average cost of our service against the number of disability adjusted life years that returns to a person. So this chart, what this chart is essentially showing us is a matrix of how much it costs to provide a surgery to someone against how much disability adjusted life years that is expected use, full future life that returns to a person. It enables us to see really quickly which of our surgical procedures are highly beneficial in some regards and which of them are quite costly in some regards. Now that is one factor that we consider in determining what programs we should run. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it gives us information to make decisions on. We can see differences between genders in how that plays out according to the surgery diagnoses and what we would expect to see in terms of disability-adjusted life years. We've got it filtered by age group. So right now, we can look at men over the age of 40 and which of the procedures Mercy Ships provides can bring the most life years back to a person. And again, that's not the be-all and end-all. It's not the only question we ask in terms of figuring out what we have the capacity to do in a nation when we go in. And here's the program's data assessment one that I talked about, the one that was really fun. By the time we had done a CMMI assessment against all of the aspects and functions within our programs teams, we had a CMMI number against each of them. We also had a priority as well, so I can refilter this grid and say, okay, I just want to see the priority in 4 and 5 changes, and then I'll flip it back to show the functions first. I will expand a bunch of these, and I can see which of the areas in our programmatic teams do we really need to pay close attention to. I can see this guy here and this guy here will result in a CMMI maturity increase of 2 if we take the recommended steps, and then the recommended steps are in a separate report. We could have pulled that data in, but it's pretty narrative heavy. And those are priority 5 requests as well. So this gives us a tool to say, to show and to tell the story of what issues we need to address in our programs that will bring the most benefit back to the people who are running those processes. We've also got that laid out in another scatter grid format, which shows which areas we could be focusing in on a more general sense. For example, outpatient processes. Those are over on the far right, indicating a strong maturity increase. I can click on that one, dig on it, and it will drill down into all the aspects of outpatients as well. And I can look at the specific activities within outpatient functions that will result in the strongest maturity increase against the priority on the y-axis as well. So that's all from me. I know we want to leave a section open for question and answers. So Frederick, I will hand it back to you now to facilitate that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for most interesting presentation. Sounds like you're really benefiting quite a bit from this platform. So there were a lot of questions that came in, and I'll just start from the top. I reordered the questions a little bit, but just bear with me here. When this person was really for Julie, we're talking quite about the associative engine. So the question came in, are you suggesting that Qlik helps with data cleaning by using the associative engine? Can you talk a little more about that? How would you address entries that the engine does not catch?
Yeah, no. So the answer to that is yes. When we load data from your data systems into Qlik, we load the all unique values for a given field in a data set that you've requested to load into the platform. And so what is presented to you, for example, is a list of countries, let's say, if that is a field coming from one of your systems. And it doesn't cleanse the data when it brings it in, but it does actually show you all of the unique values that it found within that given field. And very quickly, you can scan through that data set, that, kind of that list, if you will, to actually identify where there might be misspellings, maybe countries that weren't capitalized in one way or another. Sometimes people code in maybe just the 3-character ISO identity of a country versus the full country name, things like that. So yes, the associative engine does help you cleanse your data by showing you really the good, bad, and the ugly, everything right there within your data. And as Joff, I want to kind of reiterate what Joff said, the best practice is to not clean your data in the visualization layer, in the reporting layer, but to actually use the reporting layer to identify the issues with data quality and go back and change the data actually in the source. And Joff talked about that in his presentation, and that's, of course, a best practice that we would recommend as well.
Exactly. So, well, excellent. There was quite a few questions about skills and what it takes to do some of these things. So I kind of try to group those questions together. So what are the best ways of becoming familiar with Qlik? Is there a library of training resources?
Yes, absolutely, and that'll address kind of the skills question as well. If you go to Qlik.com, there are really kind of 3 key resources, I guess, to remember from this presentation, and they'll actually all be presented as well on our Qlik.org launched website coming up here in a couple of weeks. But 3 key resources to remember if you go to Qlik.com. Number 1, you can download and start using our technology for free. It's very easy to do so. There is a desktop version, there's a cloud version, and there'll be a lot of examples actually shown to you as you begin to use the Qlik technology. The second resource there is free training. If you go to the training section on our website, there's a library of free trainings available that are self-guided and really get you jump-started with regards to kind of loading your first spreadsheet, loading your first connection to Salesforce, and building your first dashboard. And then thirdly, there's a whole wealth of kind of material out there on our Qlik channel on YouTube, little videos by the infamous Mike Torello on how to build a better bar chart, things like that, to our Qlik community. We have a very vibrant community on the web with a lot of sharing, a lot of collaborating going on, people posting examples of apps, asking questions getting answered and monitored by Qlik people, of course, as well as our partners and customers. But it's a very vibrant community, and there's a lot of material. Again, it's all accessible on Qlik.com. From a skills standpoint, I'm really proud of an organization like Mercy Ships and all the other partners that we have. Now, to get started, there is some time involved, whether that comes from myself. I'm no master by any means, so take Joe's recommendation with a grain of salt. But in any event, there's a lot of resources that will come from Qlik to help you get started. And we do have a great partner network that oftentimes gets involved as well. But with regards to Mercy Ships, they've built all of this that you've seen themselves. With Joff and a couple of folks on his team, he can kind of, add to this, obviously, with his direct experience. But, Mercy Ships has been able to build up this really wealthy library of analytical dashboards, if you will, with their own team.
So there was a follow-up question for Joff on that. Did you find, Joff, that you needed to hire in data analysts and people with Qlik skills, or were you able to train existing staff?
My recommendation is you find people who have data and analysis skills. If they don't come in through the door with Qlik experience, that's totally fine. But like Julie mentioned, the training resources that are available from Qlik are fantastic, and we've been able to spin people up on the platform really quickly, provided they have the aptitude for data and set-based thinking, which is absolutely critical. I would recommend you don't compromise on that.
Terrific. So, like again, another follow-up question here, since like these are kind of nicely sequenced. How much time and manpower does it take to build and maintain these dashboards?
In our experience, the process that takes the longest is building the model behind the apps. Getting data in from source systems can be everything from one afternoon to multiple months. It's almost entirely contingent on the complexity and the quality of the data model source you are working with. Without naming any names, there are some platforms where the database structure and schema is so fantastic you don't need a manual. You can read it because tables and fields are logically named, keys are laid out really nicely, and there are others which are really hard and difficult to work with. That will be where the bulk of the time is spent. Actually getting that data from your base kind of middle tier Qlik models into apps is really, really quick. That stuff can happen really quickly. So yeah, you can build if you've got someone who's skilled and is in the right spot and has the time. You can be building out apps in single-digit hours for sure. It's the building of the models behind it which can take time.
Fantastic. Great. Another question that came in was, how do you manage GDPR or HIPAA type restrictions within your engine and tools?
Well, it's a pretty broad question. I can speak from our experience. Julie, you may have something more valuable to add. GDPR and HIPAA type restrictions are all about who is using what data and how. And I don't think Qlik is any different from any other platform in that regard. You still have to pay attention to who has access to what data and how that data is being used. I think the same questions that would apply to any other use of information in an organization will apply to Qlik. Julie, you've probably got some insight there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with Geoff. It really comes down kind of to the ability for the Qlik platform to provide appropriate governance and security around the data that gets loaded into the platform. There's a wealth of material on kind of how our clients have actually been better enabled to implement the processes, for example, of GDPR with Qlik. They've been able to identify the areas of data of concern and actually make the appropriate actions in the source systems. They've used Qlik actually as a tool to identify where they might have some areas of risk, if you will. So if you go to Qlik.com, search on GDPR, you'll find some of those materials, and it's obviously very interesting to read through, but know that it is supported by our governance and our security kind of capabilities within the platform.
And I'll add to that as well. One of the things in the back-end Qlik management console, the QMC, that's really useful is an auditing feature that allows me to see what things I have access to in a matrix type format, which is really great for seeing who can access which apps and which data in a pretty quick fashion.
So there were a couple of questions related to access and the kind of distribution of the tool. So how broadly do you have a Qlik deployed at Mercy Ships? Does everyone have access to the apps or the dashboards that you build? And what are the licensing implications?
So our experience at Mercy Ships is, in terms of how broad it's deployed, let's talk about that first. We have targeted strategic areas where it brings the most value. We could spend our time and effort bringing in every piece of data that we have in the organization, but there's diminishing returns on value. And so we want to focus on the areas where there are sweet spots and people get a lot of value out of the data we bring in. So that's kind of your core systems, your financials and your fundraising and your HR platforms for us. And the programmatic piece is huge as well. We want to expand that and grow that more. Does everyone have access? Everyone has the potential to have access. But of course, application access and data access within Qlik is managed by the security model and the governance model around that. What are the licensing implications? At Mercy Ships, we use a token-based model where people receive tokens for logins. It really does depend, I think, and Julie can probably, again, speak to this better. I think it depends on your usage models and how people will use the platform that determine the appropriate way for you to license it. There are some that are token-based and some that are user-based. Yeah, Julie, any more thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, Joff. So really, kind of what we do is work with each organization on kind of their current kind of needs, if you will, as well as their future needs, and talk through an exercise of what would be the best way to deploy to the various folks in an organization.
For Mercy Ships, the token-based model made sense because we have a lot of people who will intermittently use the app. Maybe they need to go in once a week or once a month. They don't need to be consuming a whole user license all the time, but when they are, they need to make sure there's something available. And so we found that's been a really cool way to address the licensing.
There was a little bit of a drill down into that particular question in terms of data access. And you did mention how universal access is to your dashboards. But when the dashboards are looking at aggregated data, and do field agents or people in your organization, do they get access to all the data that's underlying some of that aggregated data, or do they only get access to kind of their own area of operations?
We actually have mixed cases. For example, a lot of the value of an analytics and reporting processes are in kind of your strategic planning and management type tiers. And those are actually our more stable and less volatile staff that are volunteer-based at Mercy Ships. So it's really those domains that get a lot of value out of Qlik. So it's very heavily in use especially at our home base here in Texas. But there are people out in the field as well. A good example is our development managers who are doing fundraising throughout the nation. They all use a single app that where they can see which of our donors are around them at any given time, and see statistical reports on that and who they could be calling and interacting with. But they can only see their own data set for donors they are assigned to. They all use the same app, but they have restrictions within the app on who can see what in the data set.
Well, that's terrific. We are getting to the top of the hour here, so we need to respect everybody's time and schedules. So I think we're going to close out here. There were a couple questions that we didn't get to, and maybe we can answer those either in an email that we send out or post a Q&A document to the NetHope Solutions Center later on. Well, I want to thank both of you, Julie and Joff, for the terrific information, and all the practical stuff that you're doing at Mercy Ships is very encouraging. Everybody has their contact information, email on the slides here. Feel free to contact either Joff or Julie. You'll have a chance to do that also after you receive the follow-up email that will come out later on today. We'd also appreciate if you have a look at the webinar satisfaction poll that will pop up in your browser as soon as you leave this today. And I'm also posting a link to the NetHope webinar series on the NetHope Solutions Center. There you can find both future and past webinars, and you should be able to peruse those as well. So thank you to all the attendees. Thank you to Joff. Thank you to Julie. And we really appreciate the great information that was shared here today. Hopefully we'll see each other again soon. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.